Hello and welcome to Off Camber. My name is Alfred. If you've been with me before, then you might know this Jeep behind me. It's my 2012 Jeep Wrangler. And in previous episodes, we've gone through the installation review of a ton of different products from Motobilt that I thrown onto this Jeep. We've done the front and rear fenders, the rock sliders, along with the tire carrier. A couple things we haven't been able to address just yet have been the front and rear bumper, but that's going to change today, because in today's episode, we'll be going through the installation review of the Tomahawk front bumper from Motobilt. I'm going to give you guys my justifications why I decided to go with this bumper instead of any other bumper available on the market. Because let me tell you, the aftermarket is flooded for different bumper options for Jeeps, especially for the JK. But the Tomahawk bumper is a little bit different from the rest of them, but I'm going to show you guys why that is. So let's go ahead and let's get started.
As you can see, I've previously removed the factory plastic bumper. After removal of the bumper, what we can do is start removing the plastic clips that line the top side of the grille. Once these clips are removed, the grille simply pulls off. The last component that needs to be removed for the install is these bolts that hold the sway bar to the frame. Once they're removed, the sway bar simply swings down and out of the way.
So what makes this bumper different from the majority of bumpers available in the aftermarket is that this one is a frame chop bumper, which that means we're going to be removing a large portion off the front of the frame. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring the bumper really close to the body of the vehicle and give us an awesome approach angle. Now there's a couple things to consider when running this bumper. So the first thing is we're going to have to relocate this vacuum pump, and that deals with the emissions. But we're not going to delete it, we're just going to relocate it so it's actually up in the engine compartment. Now the second thing to consider is that if you have a Jeep Rubicon with the factory sway bar disconnect, you're no longer going to be able to run that type of sway bar with this bumper. Because what's going to happen is that the mounting locations for that sway bar for the Rubicon would no longer work since we're getting rid of this lower cross member. So you're going to have to find a different option, like a Kuriani rock or a sway lock or a different type of sway bar. Now, since I already have a stock sway bar, it's going to bolt into the same locations. But I do have plans later down the line of swapping it out for a more capable solution or more capable option. So since I don't have to worry about the sway bar, we'll go ahead and start relocating the vacuum pump.
For an additional cost, Motobilt sells this relocation kit for the vacuum pump. It comes with a bracket, hardware, and electrical connections to relocate the pump to the engine compartment. The original hoses that used to go to the vacuum pump could be removed from the Jeep. The only parts that we need to reutilize is this check valve and hose. To finish the relocation, we have to take off this connector and splice in the wire that was provided from the Motobilt kit. We'll run this wire up to the engine compartment and splice back in the original connector.
With that vacuum pump relocated to the engine compartment, we're ready to begin the install for the front bumper. So what we're going to do now, we're going to grab the grinder and start chopping off this front cross member.
The removal can be done with a grinder, but here I have access to a plasma cutter. And let's just say using a plasma cutter makes this kind of work a lot easier and more fun. While cutting the cross member in half to help out with the removal, let's just say it was under a little bit of tension and, well, I was a little startled.
And now with that cross member completely out of the way, now what we're going to do is we're going to start trimming back some of the body mounts, the two forward ones. So what we're going to measure 1 3/4 inches down from the top of the mount. And we're going to start grinding away some of that material. And that's just going to allow us to actually place the template that Motobilt gives us onto the frame so we can start measuring for our next cuts. So with the body mounts shaved down, now what we're going to do is we're make a mark. This mark is going to be 3 inches forwards of the face of the body mount, and then we'll draw a line across the top of the frame. Now Motobilt gives us this template, so what we'll do is we'll form this up and place that around the frame. And with the template in place, now we're good to make the rest of the marks that we're going to use to cut. And now you guys know why it's called a frame chop bumper. So right now we're ready to actually install the Tomahawk onto the Jeep. So what we'll do is we'll throw the bumper onto the Jeep and we'll install the sway bar bolts. And then we'll use the bumper as a template, and what we gotta do is mark out some more holes that need to be drilled out. We'll take off the bumper, drill those holes out, and then once that's all done, we'll throw the bumper back onto the Jeep and install the remaining hardware. And when drilling out the aftermost holes into the frame, you just gotta be careful when you start to penetrate through the inboard frame rail, just because you do have your radiator here, some electrical harnesses, and also some other lines. So just be careful and then just be slow with it as well. And luckily for me, I had a 2x4 hanging around, so I'm just gonna kind of lodge it up there, just so it has something, so that the drill bit has something soft to bite into. There you go. And after drilling out all the holes, our last piece that we gotta worry about is this guy right here. So what this is that it's just a bunch of DOM on this plate, and that goes on the inside of the frame. It's basically an anti-crush sleeve, so when you tighten down the hardware for the bumper, you're not gonna cause those that frame rail to collapse on itself. So you just go right inside the frame, keep its strength. And for me, it's the next day. So last time when I was throwing the bumper onto the Jeep, I had a couple issues. Well, number one, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. But the issues that I was having with the bumper and the frame is that the holes that I drilled were off by a little bit. So I basically had issues trying to get the bolt through the bumper, the frame, the anti-crush sleeve that we installed through the other side of the bumper. So instead of banging my head off of it, it was already kind of late. So I decided to come back today. I'm gonna open up those holes up just a little bit more on the frame and on the bumper, get myself a little bit more ability of movement to get that bolt through, and then that should get us closer to finishing the install of the bumper. here's the Tomahawk bumper fully installed onto the JK. Now, let me go through the number of reasons why I decided to go with this bumper instead of any other bumper out there on the market. So as you can tell, the bumper is really close to the frame of the Jeep and leaves this clearance all the way out here to your tire. So if you're trying to hit an obstacle, you don't have to worry about your bumper getting in the way. Now, along with the clearances off to the side, what we gain also is the clearances up front, so your approach angle. Because that original cross member that used to hang down is no longer there, so we actually have we have a lot more clearance to actually crest over obstacles, and it's really tucked up, so we don't have to worry about that getting hung up and preventing us from actually, tackling an obstacle. A couple other things is that shackle mounts here are fully integrated into the bumper, so they're really strong. You won't have to worry about these getting ripped off. And a cool feature that makes this bumper different from a lot of bumpers out there on the market is that this has a cutout on the bottom of the bumper. So what that allows you guys to do is that you can run the winch line down to the bottom of the bumper and into your axle. So if you're running coilovers, is that what you can do is you can cinch that axle up and prevent it from unloading if you're trying to scale something with a really steep incline. Because normally when you try and climb something with coilovers with a steep incline, your coilovers have a tendency to unload the suspension. So, what this allows is your winch to actually suck it up and prevent that from happening. Which, I like that feature, so if I ever go down to coilovers in the future, I'm glad I already have that here with the bumper. And another feature about this bumper that I was looking for, and that this one actually provides, is that the winch plate is actually recessed into the bumper. And that's pretty good because you're not going to be obstructing your airflow into the radiator. And here in Southern California, we can easily hit 100 degrees plus during the summer. And when you're going off-road with that degree of temperature and going slow, you can easily overheat a vehicle. So having more airflow not being obstructed by, let's say, a winch is a lot better for the vehicle. And one less thing to worry about when you're actually going off-road. Now, this bumper is the same bumper that you would use for, a JK, a JL, and JT. The only difference is that the locations for where the sway bar actually mount on this bumper, though. Motobilt does provide you both locations already cut into the bumper, so you just gotta change that up. A couple drawbacks that this bumper, I would say, a couple drawbacks to this bumper is that number one, you can't really go back to a factory bumper or any other bumper out there on the market, because since we're chopping off the frame, we're making the frame kind of work with the bumper, and you can't really go back to a stock setup unless you want to try and weld on that cross member all over again. So if you kind of go this way, if you go with the Tomahawk, you're kind of like set with it. And like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the video, another drawback of this bumper is that if you have a Rubicon with because it comes with a factory sway bar disconnect, is that you won't be able to use that sway bar no longer with this bumper. Reason being is since we got rid of that cross member, the actuator for that sway bar no longer has a place to mount. So you'll have to find a different option out there, either being like using a Curry anti-rock or maybe a sway lock from off-road only. But for me, the stock sway bar still works just fine, and then later down the line I'll upgrade that. Well, here's the Tomahawk bumper in its entirety. There's a couple things I still want to add to this. Like obviously I still want to add the winch, and I got a couple LP6s from Baja Designs currently in order, so can't wait to get those parts on and throw them on the bumper. But before I do all that, I'm gonna send this out to powder coat and then get it back and then throw it back onto the Jeep. But I think it looks good. I think it's gonna be strong. I think it's probably one of the better looking bumper options out there on the market. And I just can't wait to actually put it through its paces. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys get more perspective on what this bumper is and the process of it is to actually install it. But please, if you like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll catch you guys in the next adventure.